Check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Sibilance. Check, check. All right. We are live in the BrainJo virtual classroom. Welcome. Any of you who have attended here, this workshop is going to be on how to play the song Walking Cane, or Hand Me Down My Walking Cane. And this is going to be part of the Ear Laboratory series, which means that I'm going to be taking you through the process of kind of how to think about playing this song by ear. Okay? I'm just doing some technological checks here before I get started. This is if you're watching this live, once again, if you're on the Clawhammer site, in the virtual classroom page there, you should see a chat box underneath that you can ask questions if need be. It should be functioning. I've tested it. And you can also watch this directly on the secret YouTube link. There's also a chat box there. But I do believe to chat, you'll need to be logged in to YouTube. So... all right, so, and I will, of course, look periodically at the chat box just to see if there are any questions that arise. I will post I have a handout which you see behind me on the screen, which we'll work through, and I will post this on the page when I'm finished so that you'll have it. But it essentially contains the building blocks for this tune, which are the chords and the basic melody. All right. There we go. Okay, so let's get started. Hopefully, so this is a song that I've done as part of the Song of the Week series. So hopefully, or maybe you've seen that, or at least you're familiar with this song. We will go over the basic melody here in just a moment. Remember that the idea for these series of workshops is to go over the process for how to think about working up these songs by ear. So to take a melody or a song that we want to learn how to play on the banjo and kind of build our own way of doing it from the ground up. So this piggybacks off of the playing by ear series of modules that are part of the course, and sort of just gives you more and more opportunities to practice doing what I cover there. And like we've talked about before, this is pretty much the root skills that are required for improvisation, particularly melody-based improvisation, which is the kind that I prefer. So it's kind of compressing all of these steps that we're going to review into a faster sequence. And the more you do this, sort of the more you'll be able to kind of do it all in tandem. So first of all, let's get tuned up. Whoops. And I will just bring up, see if that works. Yeah, okay. All right, so the tuning for this song is going to be standard G. Which means we'll be playing it in the key of G, and that'll be D on the 4th string. I'm going to tune mine as well. G on the 3rd. B on the 2nd. D on the 1st. And then G on the 5th. All right, and quick check for any questions. Okay. So let's start by, I'm just going to sing the basic melody for this song one time through. Lord, hand me down my walking cane. Lord, hand me down my walking cane. Lord, hand me down my walking cane. We're gonna leave on for this rain. My sins, they have overtaken me. right, so that's our basic melody, and this song is just one melodic phrase repeated over and over. So there's not a separate verse and chorus, even though there's kind of a chorus in the lyrics. The actual melody stays the same. And so first, as there's the process here, let's go about finding our chord progression. So once again, we're in the key of G, which means that our 1 chord is G major, right? Our 4 chord is C major, which we can get here, here. And then our 5 chord is D major, which fully fingered, first position we can get it is there. We can also do that partial D, we can do a D7, but that's our 5 chord. Those are the only ones we're going to need in this song. Remember, those are always going to be our most common chords in the key of G. The next most common would be the 6th chord, which is the E minor. But that doesn't come about in this song. So, as you remember, you almost always, the song will start on the 1 chord, the root chord, which is G major. So that's open banjo strings, or in our first fully fingered position here with our F shape. Lord, hand me down my walking cane. Lord, hand me down. So I strummed on that G chord until it didn't sound right, and it didn't sound right at that moment. Lord, hand me down. There's a change there, and like I said, we have 3 chords essentially. We're going to choose from initially our 1, 4, and 5. So that means we go to either our 4 or our 5 chord next. Lord, hand me down. That's the 4 chord, the C major, which I'm barring there at the 5th fret. You could also do it there. Hand me down. Doesn't sound right. Let's try our 5 chord. Lord, hand me down. Very nice. Down my walking cane. So cane, walking cane. Didn't sound right when I moved to that part of the melody. So best place to go next, if we're on our 4 or 5 chord, is to go back to the 1 and see how that sounds. Hand me down my walking cane. Yep. Lord, hand me down my walk. Okay. So when I switch to that, hand me down my walking. We had some dissonance there, so we want to switch again. Let's see how the 5 chord sounds. Lord, hand me down my walking. Nope. How about our 4 chord, our C major? Lord, hand me down my walking cane. Yep. Sounds good. So that's the right chord there. Hand my walking cane. I'm gonna leave on. I'm walking cane. I'm gonna leave on the morning train. So we it didn't sound good at that point. I'm going to leave on the morning train. So let's again go back to our 1 chord. Leave on the morning train. My sins they have overtaken. So when we get to overtaken, doesn't sound quite right. So let's try going back to that 5 chord. My sins they have overtaken me. Notice there, as a point worth making, as I've talked about this before, was if we're backing up our voice and using kind of a alternating on the 3rd and 4th string as kind of our bass note, our D, our 4th string, the lowest tone there is a D. Which is not our root note if we're playing a G chord. Our root note is actually the G, which is the 3rd string. So you noticed if you're on that pattern and you just end it there, you're ending on that D, which doesn't sound quite right. You want to typically end on the root note of the song. My sins they have overtaken me. So that's me ending on the root note there, which is the 3rd. But if I kind of continued a pattern, sins they have overtaken me, I ended on that 4th string, which is the D, which is not terrible, but it kind of isn't like that clincher sound that you want at the very end of a song. So just something to think about if you're playing and singing. So we've worked out a chord progression. Let me move myself out of the picture so that you can see it clearly, and then I'll just walk through it here just to make sure you understand. Remember that each letter you see means you're holding it for a 2 count, two bum ditties essentially, in the language of Clawhammer. And let me check here real quick for any questions. Okay, so let me review that chord progression there. So we're going to start, we do 4 measures of G. 2, 3, 4, 2 measures of D, 2 measures of G, 2 measures of C, 3 measures of G, 1 of D, and 2 of G. And that last measure there, since I was ending on it, basically just play the first note of the measure as the ending note, and that's kind of held throughout that whole 2 count. Otherwise, if you were just going to continue on and keep playing the song, you play that and then go wrap around to back to the beginning again. Okay? So once again, I'll just play that real quick while I'm singing. Lord, hand me down my walking cane. Lord, hand me down my walking cane. Lord, hand me down my walking cane. I'm gonna leave on the morning train. My sins, they have overtaken me. And I deliberately reversed the pattern when I was moving to that G chord so that I would end on the root note. All right, now let's find our melody. So let me get that pulled up here. Okay, and I'll reveal it here in a second for you guys, but actually, let me see. Yeah, okay. All right, so the melody it begins. So remember, part of the reason for finding our chord progression is because oftentimes the melody notes are right there in our chord tones. So if we're starting on the G major chord, then we have essentially the open strings of the banjo as our first place to get that chord. And we need the notes, Lord, hand me, Lord. So our open third string is those first 2 notes, followed by the third string at the 2nd fret. And then our next note is the open 2nd. Lord, hand me down. And then the next note after that, still the open 2nd. My walk twice, back to the 3rd string 2nd fret, and back to the open 3rd string. So remember, we're on the G chord throughout that entire part there, and the only non-chord tone is this 3rd string 2nd fret. Lord, hand me down my walking cane. Okay, now let's see what we might do. So a very basic way of and not basic in a bad way, but just not doing anything too fancy. Lord, hand me down. So I just strike two times on the open string, followed that 3rd string at 2nd fret with a thumb on the 5th, play that open first, and then follow it with a bum ditty. And then we have, let me move myself so you can see. So we have that 2nd measure, some space. We have essentially the space for two bum ditties, 2 count, before we have our next melody note. Down. So you could just do bum ditties there. And then my walking cane. So I did the same exact thing as I did before. 2 simple strikes on the open 2nd string. That 3rd string 2nd fret, followed by a thumb on the 5th. And then here we have those pauses again where we can do something just alternating bum ditties on the bass string. Now, we're still, let's work out the next. So we're at this point in the melody, we've gotten to Lord, hand me down my walking cane. We're still on the G chord. So we're on our we're on our next measure. We have Lord, hand me. So again, all open strings, all chord tones. So for second string twice, and then the open third string. So we can kind of do the same thing we've been doing before, where I'm just playing those first note 2 by themselves, and then the thumb on the 5th after that last one. And now we're moving to the D chord, okay? And our note is that 3rd string 2nd fret. So again, a chord tone. We don't have to do any extra fret work once we know our chords to get this part of the melody. And again, we have space in our tune. So I'm just going to do the same thing that I've done before with that space. And now we've got my walking. So again, that we have that with our fingers still on that D chord. We have the 3rd string 2nd fret, the open 3rd, and then back to the 3rd string 2nd fret. And again, we could use that same pattern we've been doing. So again, 2 strikes by themselves, and then followed by a strike and the thumb on the 5th, like this. And then our last melody note we see here, cane. Which we're back to the G chord, and it's just that open 2nd, followed by some space again. And since we've moved to the higher register there, and just do an alternating bum ditty on the 2nd and 3rd strings. So here's what we have so far. Let me see if I can bring up this second part of the melody here. Let's see. It's not letting me do it this way. I'm going to try to do it another way. Bear with me 1 second. Let's see. Be back momentarily, I promise. Let's see. Just trying to get where you folks can see the next part of this melody. All right, let's try that. Okay, let's see now. All right, did that do it? Yes, it did. All right. Okay, there we go. All right. So we had, and let me check real quick for any questions. All right, good. Okay. Now we are at Lord Hand Me, which those notes lead up into that C chord. So they're all on that 3rd string. Lord hand me, Lord hand me. And we can do the same little pattern we've been doing. This whole song has this kind of nice alternating structure throughout it. There we just play, again, those first 2 strikes. And again, this is just an aesthetics choice in terms of where you put the fifth string there, or whether you even choose to play all these melody notes. But we're going through this exercise, putting them all in there. But you could do, if you wanted to get something more staccato there in that part. Choice is up to you. The choice is yours. Now, we switching to our C chord, which will form here at the first position. And our note there, down my walking cane, is 5 times on that second string while we're fretting it at the first fret. So again, we have our our fingers in our chord positions place, and we don't have to do anything else with our fretting finger. Now, you could go something like that where you're repeatedly striking that string to get all of those melody notes in, and you can follow it by striking the fifth string to really emphasize that sound. That's a little too intense for me, so I like to do I like to put a little more space in there. So I'm basically following each of those notes that are falling on the downbeat there with just a ditty strum. And you still get plenty of the melody by doing it that way. And then I'm gonna. So the melody there, open third. I'm gonna. Could do it like that, but I'm gonna. So open third to the third string, second fret. Let me make myself bigger again. So I'm blocking it. I'm gonna. We're right there. I'm gonna. And then leave. We're back to our open G. Leave on the morning train. So again, we have we're on our G chord again, all open strings. Second string 3 times in a row. That familiar third string, second fret. So leave on the morning train. So here we could do something like 2 open, leave on, and then. So again, kind of choosing where, if we want to get all those melody notes in, where we want to put our fifth string, if anywhere. So I like the way that sounds. And now we're on my sins. So there we go, this measure here. My sins, 2 strikes of the open string. Sorry, it's leave on the morning train. Leave on the morning train. So that actually has, again, space there, where we just play bum ditties. Now we're coming up to our ending. My sins, they leave on the morning train. My sins, they have overtaken me. So there at the end, right before the last measure, we have the last D chord. So those 2 notes again fall right on that D chord with that third string, second fret. So there again, no additional fretting. My sins, they have overtaken me. And then. Song, that last note's kind of held for that final measure, so we can do something to fill in that measure if we like. So that's the melody for this song, and that's kind of one idea, or a few ideas of how we might go about arranging it for clawhammer. And I'll play through a few other ideas real quick. So if we want to add in some extra excitement, Lord, hand me down, we might syncopate that first part. Syncopate it, and by doing a hammer on there, and then also down, sliding into that note before it. Lord, hand me down, my walking king. Lord, hand me, Lord, hand me. And then we could hammer onto that note. Anytime you switch into this D chord, that hammer on there is always an option. It's very easy to get. And again, you know, anytime you've got this third string second fret in a song, falling on a downbeat or an upbeat, you can always try hammering onto it to see what it sounds like. So Lord, hand me down. So instead of there, as we're switching to this D chord, instead of doing it straight, I might do this. So again, I'm syncopating it. Lord, hand me down, by dropping my thumb and then doing a skip stroke. And then, instead of playing it straight like that, I might do this. My walking king. And again, I've talked about this before, but I think it's really helpful to get in the habit of singing these in your head, even without your banjo, and thinking of different ways you might sing it and syncopate it and play around with the melody, and then try and find that same sound on your banjo. So there, where we had that space, I might do an alternate string hammer-on from the open second to the third string second fret. And then that other space, I might do a little more syncopation in that pause there. So there I just go doing a skip stroke, again to the open third with my thumb. Here's what I have so far. And there. And then before, where we're moving to our C chord, Lord, hand me down, Lord, hand me. We could again do another pull off there, instead of just going straight. And then there, instead of just playing straight bum ditties, I might go. Do a drop thumb there to syncopate that. So again, there I'm doing the same thing I did before. Skip stroke to a thumb on the second string. And then again, we could do a pull off on that from that second to the open rather than just. I think that adding these little hammer-ons and pull-offs are a really easy way to get some extra interest into the melody without really having to do much. And then again, anytime we have this open second string, instead we can always slide into it from our third string from the second fret to the fourth fret. Two ways ways of doing that. Leave on the morning train, or leave on the morning train. Okay? My sins they have. So there, my sins they have. That's the straight way, syncopated. My sins they have, with a hammer on. So something like that, right? I'm just putting in some, basically some of these spots where there's opportunities to hammer on to a fretted note, opportunities to pull off to an open string, opportunities to syncopate by doing that, and also by dropping my thumb, opportunities to slide into an open note instead of playing an open. These are all ways that you can play around with the melody, and this is why, with even a fairly simple tune like this, with not a lot of stuff going on in the melody, there is nearly a limitless number of ways you could play this for yourself, and no end to the different combinations that you can make. So again, these are great songs to play around with doing this because they're simple, because they have strong melodies that are memorable, and that you can sing to. Let me check real quick. Okay. This is also one that would be easy to make an up the neck version of, and I'm going to be covering this in the next tutorial, topical workshop in the Brainjo Virtual Classroom, how to take something, an arrangement that you're playing down the neck, and move it up the neck. So stay tuned for that, but this would be one where you could easily do that using your up the neck chord shapes. I'll play that real quick. Down my walking cane, Lord hand me down my walking cane, Lord hand me down my walking cane, I'm gonna leave on the morning train, my sins they have overtaken me. Okay, so those are your chord positions, and it'd be pretty easy to create an up the neck version of that using those. It occurred to me too that this is probably a good song if you're starting to play, if you're playing and singing and you want to start kind of messing around with doubling the melody behind your voice sometimes. So we've talked about before, one of the sort of the core bass approach to playing and singing is just doing an alternating bum ditty on the bass strings as you're forming the chords. But one way to take that a little further is to start adding in some melody notes as you're singing them. So here's one way you might do that with this tune. Lord, hand me down my walking cane. So there, my walking cane. Just play those straight as you're singing. Lord, hand me down my walking cane. And then back to the bum ditties. Lord, hand me, Lord, hand me. Again, we're just hitting open strings. Down. And again, my walking cane. Lord, hand me down my walking cane. I'm gonna leave on the morning train. My sins, they have overtaken me. So that's a good one for practicing that. They fall right on the beats, and you have these little spaces to throw in bum ditties, and then you can kind of replicate what you're doing with your voice by doing nothing else than just striking the same note with your picking finger as you're singing it. So something to try if you're working on playing and singing and getting started with taking that kind of to the next level. All right, so I'll wrap this workshop up, and let me know if you have any questions. You can always go inside the virtual classroom page. There's a comment box on the bottom. If you have any questions related to this episode in particular, past episodes, or you have a future topic you want covered, or future song, or whatever, please feel free to leave a comment there. I see all of them, and I definitely factor those into the plans for future workshops. And as you probably know, you can go to clawhammerbanjo.net // schedule to see the schedule of workshops. That's I will always add more if need be, if somebody wants something specifically covered. All right, that's all for this one, and I will see you in the next workshop. I think the next one that's planned is a walkthrough of the tab for Soldier's Joy. I think that's coming in 2 days, maybe 2 days, or maybe that's the 7th, but soon. Check the schedule. All right, see you next time.